One key is communication, whatever form of communication it is, just being responsive and being communicative with your client. One of the things that I talk to with my clients a lot, other attorneys who are struggling in this area, the biggest issue that they have is not necessarily whether they communicate or not. It's setting expectations, right? Letting somebody know when to expect to hear from you is just as important as getting back to them. Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today we've got an attorney on the show that's going to be talking to us about his experiences and lessons that he's learned within the growth of his practice, and we'll see where that conversation takes us. I'm excited to learn from others. There's a vast world of experiences out there, and there's so much that we can learn from each other. Speaking of learning from each other, here at Profit with Law, we help solos and small firms grow beyond themselves. Our claim is doubling your personal income in 12 months. And if that's something that's of interest to you, and it's not for everybody, some people want to stay where they are. They're happy and just in the status quo, and that's perfectly fine. But if you're looking to grow, you're looking to earn more from your practice, and you just haven't quite figured it out, or it feels like you're on the slow journey, we can help you with rapidly changing that. We'd like to make that happen for you in 12 months or less. And it all starts with a free strategy session with somebody on my team. So the way that works is we help you clarify on that call really clearly, what is it that you're after? What does the 12-month ideal situation look like for you? What are the things that are in your way of getting there? And just help you to identify or see how you can get past that and how it's possible to actually achieve that. That is what we call a clarifying call, right? You're going to leave that call with a lot of clarity on what is it that you need to do and how you need to do that. And if at the end of that, it makes sense for you to have support from us, where you're in a group with other attorneys who are on the same journey as you, and being mentored and coached along the way by myself and our coaching staff, then we'd love to have you. So book that free call today at profitwithlaw.com/strategy session, profitwithlaw.com/strategy session. Our guest today is Edward Cohn. Edward Cohn is an exceptional criminal defense attorney in Tucson, Arizona, and has dedicated his career to representing the public. Edward always strives to get the best possible outcome in every case. He practices law with genuine compassion, built on rock-solid foundation of integrity. Edward has over 50 five-star reviews on Google, and he's also highly regarded on websites like Avo, lawyers.com, and Martindale. Edward, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Moshe.
It's my absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share it with our audience. So let's start with a real easy softball pitch right over the plate for you, right? So tell us how you became an attorney, how you decided to start practicing your own in your own practice, and what that initial journey has looked like. Give us just the broad strokes of who you are so people can kind of get to know you as we head into the rest of our conversation.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. I've been practicing law as of November, almost 23 years, actually 23 years this month. And I'm licensed in 3 states, Michigan, Massachusetts, and Arizona. I've practiced law in each state. I lived in Michigan. I was born and raised in Michigan. That's where I grew up. And I practiced there for 7 years. I practiced in Boston for 5 years. And now this is my main practice here in Tucson for the last 10, almost 11 years. Um, so basically, prior to being a lawyer, I was actually in a band with my sister. I play guitar, and we were uh, in a band in the Detroit music scene. And eventually, after 10 years of doing that, the band, kind of broke up. My sister was burnt out with doing it. I had a college degree, so I figured I would go to law school. I thought it would be a good fit for me. Back in high school, I had a stepbrother who got into trouble a lot, and I was always talking him out of trouble when I was in high school. So it felt very natural to be an advocate. And so I decided that I would go to law school, and that would be my new career as opposed to being a musician. Um, when I was in law school, I was I knew I wanted to go into litigation. That was my concentration was litigation, but I didn't know I'd be a criminal defense lawyer at all. Like back then, I thought I'd probably be some sort of civil litigator. Um, and but when I got out of law school in '02, the economy was kind of weird. It was after 9/11, it was kind of a strange environment. And uh, I basically got encouraged by some mentors, some experienced lawyers to, go out on my own and see what I can do, learning the business of being a litigator at court. So it was very challenging at first because I was, asking for court appointments back then. Wanted court appointments and things of that nature to get my feet wet. I would go down to the courthouse on a regular basis to watch hearings to see what happens at the hearing, so I can learn how to handle an arraignment, how to handle a pretrial, how to handle a motion hearing. And I got very good at doing it. I got very used to it. And so looking back, I mean, I'm very happy that I'm, you know, in practice for myself. I don't want to work for anyone else. I'm content with having my own schedule and my own clients, and I don't have too heavy of a caseload, which is good because you got to be able to, give stellar client service, in my opinion, and you can't do that with 100 cases. It's just not going to happen. I know with some court-appointed attorneys, they try to have like 100 cases, or I mean, just an insane amount of cases. There's no way you can give good client service with that if you're on your own. If you have other lawyers working for you, maybe you could. But so for me, it was a natural fit. I was uh, good at negotiating, good at advocating for people. I like helping people, my fellow citizens. I don't represent corporations. I represent human beings, and the issues they're dealing with. And my goal was always to get them the best possible outcome. That's what I fight to get, is the best possible outcome. And so I think that's why I'm well regarded and appreciated online.
That's an awesome and very interesting story, actually. So before I even dive into, I noticed that customer service is a big item for you, and I want to dig deeper into that. But before that, I want to ask you, you were heading towards being a musician. You kind of chose another path. Did you give up music? Do you regret that choice? Do you still play? Do you still hope to eventually go back to that? Where does that fit in your journey?
That's a good question. I still play guitar. I have a 10-year-old daughter. She plays guitar too. She's learning how to play guitar. And so I do still, I mean, I still love music. I talk to my sister regularly. She lives in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and so we still love it. I don't regret it. No, I mean, it was just like at that time, from the late 80s to say, 1998 or so. We were like gigging all the time, and it was like a way of life, rehearsing twice a week. Um, we wrote a lot of songs, and it was a pleasure working with her. Um, but it just seemed like uh, you know we weren't going to get the deal that we wanted back then, like a record deal. We were close, and we were on the air. We had a song on the radio and stuff like that. But basically, it was time. It was time to pick a different path. And I talked to some people I respect, some college professors and some other professionals. I said, what should I do? You know, I I want to go to grad school, but I don't know, should I be a teacher? Should I be a lawyer? And we talked about it, and everyone said you should go to law school. So and that's what my gut feeling was telling me to do anyway. So so for me, it was a good fit, and I really enjoyed law school. I know it's a lot of work and studying all the time. It's looking back on it, I would not want to do it again now in my 50s, but back then it was okay.
It's awesome. Yeah, I love that story. What's the name of the song that was on the radio? I want to see if we can find it. We'll scour the internet, see if we can locate it.
It was called Probably.
All
And that
right.
was, yeah. We
And
played it
what
live on a news show as well. We played it live on radio and TV.
and what's your sister's name?
Carrie.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see if we can locate that song and link it up in the show notes for our listeners. But really love that journey of yours. Let's jump into. I mean, you said some very interesting things when it comes to customer service. You said that you can't give good customer service if you're on your own and you're handling 100 cases. You made some bold statements there. I think really the best place for us to start is how do you define good customer service? Like how can somebody judge whether they are providing that level to their clients? Is there a scorecard? Like how do
Yeah.
you determine that customer service?
Well, for me, it's, I want to be reachable and available. So, it's a cliche when people say, I called my lawyer, I haven't heard back from my lawyer. I can't reach him, I can't reach her. They don't return my emails, they don't return my call because if a lawyer's very, very busy, it's like it's very challenging to manage all those things, even with a staff. So for me, it's being reachable, being available, responding to emails and text messages quickly, responding to phone calls quickly, um, knowing that for them, like their issue is stressing them out, and so having the empathy, it's essential to have genuine, authentic empathy. And I have that empathy, and my clients know that. Like I really care about them. I know that it's a tough situation that they're going through. So they get that. They get compassion and empathy from me. They get reliability and dependability. And then of course the outcome, I'm very driven to try to get try to get the best results. So I'm, very driven by that, and they know that, and they know that I'm not going to have too many cases where I won't be able to provide them the client service that they deserve. So for me, um, you know, that's how I give them the service they want, and in return, they always give me a lot of gratitude.
It's interesting because you mentioned a number of things in there. One key is communication, whatever form of communication it is, just being responsive and being communicative with your client. One of the things that I talk to with my clients a lot, other attorneys who are struggling in this area, the biggest issue that they have is not necessarily whether they communicate or not. It's setting expectations, right? Letting somebody know when to expect to hear from you is just as important as getting back to them, right? Like if you set the expectation that you're going to get a reply within an hour and you get back within 2 hours, that 2 hours could be the best in the country, but you're still an hour late as far as they're concerned, right?
Right.
So, setting the expectations in a way that is manageable for you is really important. You don't have to respond back within minutes if you communicate with your clients on the front end and say, look, I'm a solo attorney, don't have support staff, that you're getting me. But what that also means is that I may be tied up in court and stuff like that. And when you reach out to me, it can take 24 hours for me to get back to you. So just, bear with me and know that that's the expectation. You set that expectation. And now, as long as you're getting back within 24 hours on a regular basis, then, they'll be very happy. But let's flip to the other piece of that where I mean you went into this area of obviously I want to get them a good result, right? And I give my best and I represent them to the fullest that I can. And that begs the question of, I mean, obviously you don't control the result, right? So you can only do your best, and it's possible that, I mean, if it and most of the time you're probably not in front of a jury. Most of the time you're probably, just in front of a judge and getting something either dismissed, waived, or pled down or whatever. Um, when somebody comes in and has an expectation of a certain result and you just based on the facts and circumstances you just don't think it's possible to get them that result, how do you navigate that on the front end so that you set the right expectation so that they are actually happy with whatever happens at the end?
Yeah, I mean, so up front, I always am as honest and straightforward with a client right off the bat. So if I think that they have a very hairy case, a very complex situation where they shouldn't have expectations of um, the case being dismissed, for example, some sort of diversion or alternative way to resolve the case through non-trial resolution, um, or even if even if jail time is a possibility for like felonies, for example. I mean, if someone has a felony record, I mean, and I see what they're charged with, I'll say, hey, you're going to have to go to jail for some time, and I'll do my best to minimize that amount, but I have to be honest with you and realistic. So I try to make them very realistic about those expectations, and I never make any promises because I can't. Lawyers can't make promises. All I tell them is I'll do my very best. But if I know that the case is uh, uh, a good one for negotiations, because let's say, like for example, I had a retired woman who she was had a great career, never had a criminal offense in her life, and she was at a U of A basketball game and got upset and threw a beverage onto the opponent's coach or something like that. I mean, like from the stand, she threw it on him, and she got charged with assault. And so for her, she's like, how could I be charged with assault? I'm just, she's never been in trouble her whole life.
Right.
So, so, um, uh, so I knew that was a good case based on her background. I really built her up with the prosecutor saying how wonderful she was and how what a great life she has. It's an isolated incident. So I knew that I would probably be able to get a good outcome. I can't promise her that, but at the end, I was able to get the case dismissed. She didn't have to go to court at all, and she was very very thrilled about that. So, but if upfront I would know that the person had an extensive criminal record, if they had any violent felonies or anything like that, that you know do happen, I would definitely be totally straight with them up front and say, hey, listen, you're probably going to have to do some jail time. We'll do our best to keep that down to as low as we can. But so I always tell them up front on the phone how I feel about their case right away.
Does that honesty cost you on the front end? In other words, are there people who choose not to hire you because you haven't painted a picture that's positive enough for them?
Sure, that's happened. I would say it happens rarely. Most people appreciate the honesty, but yes, it has happened. I've had a few people said, "Well, I think I'm going to keep looking for a lawyer. Then, I don't want to go to prison, or I don't want to, have a conviction." Um, it's rare, though, as I said. I mean, I think it's a significant minority of the cases, but yes, that's happened. And then there have been people who called who, after talking to them and having a 30-minute phone call, I don't want to represent them based on their personality and based on what I'm hearing back from it. And I'll tell them, I'll say, listen, we've had a good talk about your case. I don't want to take your case. I don't want to be your lawyer. Have a good day. So I that's happened more than the alternative where I've lost clients who were upset about me being honest. My turning them down happens more than that.
When you turn them down, I mean, people are interesting, right? And they tend to take a personal offense in that, and they'll get all upset about it. I've heard stories where firm owners have somebody coming and leaving negative reviews on Google because they weren't even engaged with them, but they had a negative experience in the sales cycle or the intake process. Has that been an experience for you at all? Have you ever had to deal with somebody leaving a negative review on Google or one of the other rating sites because they didn't like that being turned down in the intake process?
That's a great question. And it's a legitimate concern for all of us. I mean, that stuff happens. I mean, and I'm always concerned about that. I would say that I use my diplomacy skills on the phone with them where I'm so incredibly kind to them when I'm turning them down. It's not I'm not giving them the middle finger in any way. I'm saying, hey, listen, we had a conversation. I don't think I'm a good fit for you. So, but I'll use kindness and diplomacy, and so that seems to work. I've never had someone yell at me on the phone and say, "Oh, well, you're a jerk because you won't take my case." They've been disappointed, for sure. I've felt disappointment in their voices, but I'm always super super kind so that they won't do anything negative. It's always possible. You never know, right? Because you could have a person who has mental health issues on the phone. You don't know that. You never talked to them before, and that could be scary, you know. But you got to navigate it as best you can. So for me, I just use, as I mentioned, just my best diplomacy skills and kindness. Try to, you know, exude that on the phone with them so that they don't hate me if I reject them. And it's only and it hasn't happened to me yet. And God willing, it never does. I hope I don't get a bad review from having to turn on a case, but it's possible.
How do you think that your level of customer service that you provide translates into how clients pay you? One of the challenges that a lot of criminal defense attorneys have, and a lot of attorneys in general have, is being able to collect payment from their clients in full. Often, and I don't know how it is in Arizona if you're doing flat fee, if you're doing hourly, but even if it's a retainer, we tend to have poor processes in place to replenish a retainer, or we're afraid to demand it or disengage. So often we end up with clients that are either on payment plans or we're doing work before gets paid. Um, and I can envision a scenario where you get to the end of a case and you're not finished collecting the fees, and they get an outcome that they're not happy with. That can then become an issue for you to collect on that. What have you seen a correlation between how you get paid versus the customer service you're providing? Do you think there's any connection there?
Another great question. I would say that for me, up front, I tell them, I sell myself to them on those attributes that I have. I'll say, you know, I'm going to be readily available to you. I'll get back to you within 24 hours of a text and it's always way faster than that. But I do tell them that, and I'll say I'm going to provide you with stellar client service. I'm going to be there for you, and I'm going to fight for you. But I need to be paid up front. So I don't do payment plans. I just don't. I mean, if I do flat fees, I say here's the flat fee. So if you have a portion of it, talk to your mom or your dad or a relative or a close friend and get the rest of it. Get me retained and then we don't have to talk about money ever again. And I explain that to them too. I say sometimes when lawyers I have in the past, of course, had payment plans in the past which haven't worked out as you've mentioned. I've had some people owe me money. I've had clients who loved me and owed me money. I don't want to be owed money. I just want to get the money out of the way up front. Pay me up front. You and I won't talk about money again unless there's a trial. Because my retainers say, if the case gets set for trial, then there's going to be a trial fee and we'll negotiate that. But that's never happened. I generally, I mean, I've resolved probably 98% of my cases without a trial over the 23 years.
That's awesome. And good work, and uh, really, really good to know that it's possible to not provide payment plans. I think so many attorneys out there feel like in order to get the business that, like you need to offer these things that bring you down to the level of where they're at. And you're demonstrating that yeah, you probably have some people who don't use you because you're only going to take the full fee up front, but you're selling you as the solution, right? You're selling working with you as the thing that they want. And if you do a good enough job doing that, then you get to do whatever you want as far as the payment terms.
Right.
So you get to set the stage of, hey, that we don't offer payment plans. You got to pay up front or, find another attorney.
Yeah.
And being able to do that, I firmly believe that when it comes to what you charge and how you collect it is completely up to you. And whatever you set as the standard, that's the standard. So I love that you have been able to avoid or get away from offering that as an option and and you're still in business. You're still getting clients, right?
Yeah.
Because it just demonstrates that our assumption of the world or our viewpoint of the world is probably wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's probably some people who literally cannot afford the fee, but then they probably can't afford the payments either. So at some point, they're not going to finish paying, and you didn't really get what you thought you were getting when you took them on as a client.
Exactly.
Where others, if you force them to have, to find another solution, you're not their bank, they'll find another solution.
Right.
And so that's a really important point, and I think something that we can learn a lesson from what you're doing for some of our listeners out there. Um, and it comes down to, like, this is also the same conversation when it comes to competition, right? Like we think that there's just a certain pie, and we want to try to get the biggest slice of that pie. The reality is that we could probably expand the pie. And there's
Yeah,
probably a lot more people there. We aren't really competitors. It's really just finding the people who need you, right? Like there's the right attorney for every person, and you're the right attorney for a subset of the population. You got to find those people.
right.
Speaking of finding your people, we can always sometimes attract somebody who's not for us, and you have a vetting process where you turn people down on the outset. But what if you didn't do a good job in identifying what we might call a PIA client in advance, right? Like it's what a pain in the ass client.
Yeah.
Um, how do you navigate that? You're already engaged, and they just, I mean, they won't stop calling. They're texting all the time. They're not being reasonable with your recommendations. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, an awesome question as well. So I'd just like to note something like up front. When people do find me, I usually say to them on the phone, you found me online, right? And like they'll find me online or on a legal directory or on Google or something. And I said, well, you called me because you're looking for the best lawyer to help you with the case, right? Is that why you called me? Because you want to hire the best lawyer? And they always say yes. I would say, well, well, you found him. You're not shopping around for a pair of socks, right? If you're shopping around for a pair of socks, yeah, you can go get a cheaper pair of socks. But this is your life we're talking about. And if you want me on board, this is what it's going to cost. And if you can't afford that, that's fine. I'm not going to represent you. As far as your question that you just had now, that's happened a couple of times. I had a crazy client was about 10 years ago or so. I didn't know he was crazy until I got him on board. And he was a complete nightmare client. So I literally called him and used my diplomacy skills. And I said, listen, I don't think I'm a good fit for you. Uh, I don't, I don't think we're going to be able to work together. I can't work with you based on what I've seen over the past week. I care about you. I wish you the very best with your case. I'll help you by referring you to someone else if there's somebody or I'll pass them your disclosure, your police reports, but I can't represent you. I want to file a motion to withdraw. I want to be off the case. And so, I mean, I presented it that way and he agreed to it. He wasn't thrilled about it, but ultimately he agreed to it. And thankfully he did speak with another lawyer like prior to speaking to me who said that he was interested in his case too. And so I knew who that guy was. I forwarded him the information. I was so happy to get off that case. It's like I was celebrating the rest of the day to be free from that client. So yes, the best thing to do is to avoid him to begin with. But if not, you just gotta again use diplomacy skills, be super kind, be loving in your conversation to them so that they know you're sincere, and hopefully they'll let you off the case.
Now, when you're saying no to somebody or taking them, trying to disengage from them, sending them to another attorney is always something that's okay. Let me see if I can help them in another way. And also, if you send a referral to somebody, there's goodwill there too.
Right.
But at the same time, you take a risk, right? Because you're saying no for a reason, or you're disengaging from them for a reason. So now you're taking somebody who you think is going to be a bad client and pushing them on to somebody else who initially is going to think, "Oh, I'm so glad that you're sending me business," and then they're going to be like, "Oh, now I know why you sent me business," right? So, um, how do you deal with that? Are you referring people out? And if you are, do you do anything to communicate with the attorney you're referring to kind of let them know, hey, there's a reason I'm not taking this case. I want you to just make sure you understand that before you step in.
Well, and that's great. And again, I would say that I haven't referred them. I haven't directly referred clients who I knew were crazy. I would just get off the case. I offered to do that for him. He said he already spoke with the lawyer. He gave me his name. I knew who he was, and I did tell him that I told that lawyer when I talked to him on the phone and was transferring over his disclosure. I said, this guy was not a good fit for me. I think he's a bad client, and I can't work with him. So I did tell him that, but he was still happy to get the business.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say that I think it's important to let them know if there's somebody specific that you're going to refer. I've offered to do that. I've never had to do it. Thankfully, the few times I've had to withdraw from cases, they allowed me to withdraw. They signed the consent, like they signed the motion essentially to say, hey, I'm fine with him withdrawing. And sometimes you got to give back some money, which is fine. It's, I don't mind doing that to get rid of a horrible client. That's the worst thing that you can have as a client that you're not going to, that's going to get you all stressed out and, call you. That one guy I described was like calling me at like 5 a.m. like like every day during the week. I mean, it didn't make any sense because it was a misdemeanor too. It was like a misdemeanor case. There was no reason to be all calling your lawyer every day at 5 a.m. over a misdemeanor case. Just let him do his job.
Right.
Um,
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, look, there's definitely some real crazies out there, and
oh, there
you
are.
know, you want to try not to attract them, but especially being in criminal defense, it's a higher probability that you're going to get some. So,
Yeah.
we definitely want to we want to have checks and balances in place. We want to get really clear about who we want and who we don't want. We're almost ready to wrap this show up. I did want to dig into one more thing before we did that. In your bio, we talked about how you have over 50 Google reviews, and although that's not a lot compared to some larger firms out there, but definitely for a solo practitioner, that's it's a decent number of reviews. What do you think is your secret there? Do you have a system or a process in place to try to get reviews? And would you mind sharing that for our listeners?
So for me, yeah, when a case is winding down, coming to an end, and I've had a really good professional relationship with the client. They're obviously happy with me, um, and uh, and we're about to essentially, disengage. I will say to them, I'll say, are you willing to do a review for me online? I can email you a link if that's helpful. I just want no pressure. I'm just asking you if you're willing. I always ask them if they're willing to do it, and they generally say yes, and most of them do it right away. But yes, there have been a few that said, "Oh, I definitely will," and then they don't, and there's
Hmm.
nothing you can do about it. So I should probably have like 75 reviews. There's probably like a couple dozen people who didn't leave one who said they would.
Right.
And some of them don't want to be associated with a criminal defense lawyer online, like have their, oh, well, Joe Schmo said, this is a good lawyer. So some of them just simply don't want to be, you know, related or what's the word, uh, to be
Associated.
associated, exactly, to be associated with you online. So if they don't want to, then that's it. That's fine. But most of them will. Um, and um, and it's been great. I mean, I always ask at the end of a case if they're willing to do it. There have been a couple that didn't want to because of that, because of the association. They don't want to be seen online, even though on Google, if they have a Gmail account, it's not anonymous. But on Avo, it can be anonymous, or on lawyers.com. It's up to them if they want to leave a name or just only a first name, which I think is better. I think if they're able to be anonymous, most people are totally up for it, especially if they're happy.
Right. Yeah, especially in criminal defense, like certain icky sticky, areas where you don't exactly want to tout the fact that you needed a criminal defense attorney. So,
Right.
definitely I can see where that could be a challenge for some people. But I think the real key is that you ask, right? And I mean, the other point that you make is like, hey, some people say they're going to do it and they don't follow through and they do it. And I think that's a place where, maybe you could have some sort of follow-up process that you just ping them a couple more times. Say,
Right.
hey, I noticed that you didn't leave a review. I'm not going to harass you or anything like that. I just wanted to give you a gentle reminder because I know that things happen. Life goes on, and you may have fully intended to do this and just didn't get a chance to. So I just wanted to send you a quick reminder, right? And you do that once or twice, and then let it go. I think that you could probably, get salvaged maybe 25% of the people who fall by the wayside and forget about it, and they
Right.
might even appreciate the reminder,
Right.
because we forget. This is something that's big on the marketing side, right? Like we're afraid to email people on the marketing side because we don't want to bother them, but you're
Right.
forgetting that like people are interested in hearing from you because they they're in your world for a reason. And and so, often, more often than not, it's appreciated rather than despised. We only hear about the people who are mad about it because they're the ones who say something. But
Right.
all the people who are happy, getting your emails or whatever, that they're not emailing you saying, "Hey, I'm so happy you sent that email." So we have to remember that when it comes to humans and the way that they interact, is always the negativity is going to float to the surface, and we want to just focus on the positivity. Edward, this has been a wonderful conversation. Really appreciate you coming on here. I like to close the show up with two things. Number one, what is one parting piece of advice or wisdom you'd like to leave with our audience? And number two, if somebody in our audience wants to get in touch with you, they just want to connect, they want to pick your brain. And I know that obviously you'd love, if anybody needs a criminal defense attorney for somebody that they know in the Tucson area, that you'd love for them to send a referral your way.
Yeah.
So your contact info there, uh, excuse me, would be very helpful as well. So if you can share those two things, and we'll wrap this up.
Sounds like a plan. So I would say the best wisdom I could give would be that you got to be authentic with clients. You got to be real so that and so that you're not pretending to empathize. You actually are empathizing. Put yourself in their situation. Pretend your client is your cousin or a close friend's kid. Whatever you have to do to have empathy. Empathy is essential. Authenticity is essential, and they will appreciate it. They will know that you actually care about their case. They'll tell you that on the phone. They'll say, "I'm so glad I hired you. I'm glad I didn't go with that other person." And so you'll get a lot more of that through uh, empathy and authenticity. I would say, as far as referrals go, I'm also AV rated. So I'm an AV rated lawyer. Any firms out there that want to send clients to a really good attorney in Tucson, I would greatly appreciate that. Less than 10% of attorneys are AV rated nationwide. I mean, it's a small amount. And I think you can rest assured that they'll be getting, stellar service from me by referring them. Um, Contact information. What do you think, Moshe? Is email best or
I think you can give your email, you give your phone number, whatever you're comfortable giving out
okay?
on air here. It'll be public and, for anybody to get.
Okay.
I listen, email for me is it's easy to give an email address out, but sometimes it goes into a spam filter, it gets lost in the junk, and so for something like this, probably I'd give a phone number out just to make sure somebody can get in touch with me.
Okay. So phone number, I would say 520-333-3348, 520-333-3348. My website is Cohn Justice. My last name is spelled Cohn, no E in my last name. CohnJustice.com, Cohn Justice.com. Very easy to remember. And my email, just so you have that, is my name, Edward F. Cohn, Edward, the letter F like Frank, Cohn at Gmail. Edward F. Cohn at Gmail. No dots or spaces or underscores. Real easy. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Edward. Really appreciate you being here, folks. We'll obviously link all of that up in the show notes, so we have it for you if you're out driving or out for a run or in the shower, or whatever you're doing while listening to this podcast. We've got you covered. We've taken good notes for you, and you can find those, our show notes, at profitwithlaw.com or in the description of your podcast player where you're listening to this, or on the YouTube channel where you're watching this episode. Speaking of your podcast player, YouTube channel, if you enjoyed this conversation, you want to hear more from us, we're here every single Thursday with a brand new episode, and you can get notified when those episodes get dropped by simply hitting the subscribe button in your favorite player, wherever you are viewing or watching or listening to us. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You get notified when a new episode releases. But if you're looking to grow and expand your firm, or you're looking to figure out how to increase the monetization that you're getting from your law firm, at the time that you listen to this, we will have already run our first 2-day in-person workshop. We are So you may know that, you may know, you may not know, we have a group coaching program called Law Firm Growth Elite. Our claim to fame in that program is that we take solos and we help them grow their business to $1 million plus. Our guarantee is that you double your personal income in 12 months, guaranteed, or we work for free until you do. In other words, you do not need to pay another penny. You stay in the program until that happens. And the reason that we're able to make that promise, the reason we're able to do that is because we follow a very specific system. And that system starts with having a clearly written plan of how you're going to get there. That process in our group coaching program takes about 6 weeks if you show up fully during those 6 weeks. And most people do not. Most people have other things happening and they take a little bit longer. So it ends up being something like a 10-week process to get through what we call the law firm turnaround stage, and having that executable plan that you can take to market and actually do something with. So I wanted to get people going faster. I wanted to get people, on into the doing part of the program and into the execution part without needing to spend 10 weeks doing that. And what I came up with is 2 days together. If we spend 2 days, it's the equivalent of 6 calls over 6 weeks, right? And we can be focused in the room, working together, and work through exactly what we need to so that you leave the room with your plan, your action plan for the next 12 months. And we're doing our second one in the last week of January. So it's the Monday and Tuesday, last week of January. I'm just pulling up my calendar. That's January 26th and 27th. Now this is not, I am not trying to impress anybody, right? Like, I just picked a location that is near my home. I've got 4 kids and I'm not planning on traveling to this thing. Now, maybe at some point, if we're really successful doing this, maybe we do take it on the road and take it around the country. But for right now, it's happening in Montvale, New Jersey, in a Courtyard Marriott. It is not a destination hotel, but it is 30 minutes from Manhattan. So if you're looking to make a weekend out of it, it's a Monday, Tuesday, come the weekend before and spend the weekend in New York, right? Bring your wife or husband. I don't know about bringing your children. I don't know if I would go that far, but make a weekend out of it and then come and spend 2 days with me. So here's the thing is, what we do in that turnaround phase is so impactful to our clients, because during that time, we unlock billables for per attorney that are $1 million plus, right? And this is something that when people if I tell somebody straight out, yes, every attorney in your firm should be worth at least $1 million in revenue, they're gonna look at me like I've got 2 heads on. They're gonna be like, you're out of your effing mind. There's no way that you can do that. And I guarantee you that I will show you a way that you can do that with an attorney on your staff, no matter the practice area. Regardless of the practice area, I will demonstrate how we can have an attorney be producing $1 million of revenue in your business. Now, when we then pull that back, so in the grand scheme of things, look at the big picture of your business. If you were doing $1 million in revenue, that would be a game changer for a lot of you, right? Some of our listeners are doing a lot more than that, right? We've gotten clients from the podcast that have been doing 4 or 5 million and 50 million, right? So it's not everybody, but a large portion of our listener base are solo attorneys or small attorneys, and you've gotten to 250, 500, 750, right? But if it's you, or you haven't fixed the business model, then you haven't figured out how to unlock a minimum of $1 million per attorney. And that's a minimum. In many practice areas, it's easier in some practice areas than others, but in many practice areas, it can be 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 million per attorney. And it all has to do with how you leverage the support staff beneath them. That's one piece of it, right? So get them to be able to produce more work, but it also has a lot to do with how you price or position your service. And I'm allergic to the billable hour. We have family law attorneys, we have criminal defense attorneys, we have litigation attorneys, not PI, but business litigation, and real estate litigation, and all of those we're able to show a model where you can get away from the billable hour and unlock a massively higher amount of revenue per client, per attorney. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. That is just brushing the surface in what you're going to get in this workshop. Now, I didn't intend for this episode to be just a promo for the workshop, but I think it's really important to talk about going into the end of the year. It's an opportune time to start thinking about what does 2026 look like for you. It's really a wonderful time of the year to jump into our programs and get our support and make 2026 that stellar banner year for you and your law firm, and really change the life of your experience and your family, just from what you can create with your firm. So thanks for being here today, listening to the Profit with Love podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel. And until next time, just, stick with it, and take something from today's episode that you heard Edward share with us, and take one nugget and try to implement that into your firm. Do that every single week with the episodes that you listen to, and you will go far. Take care. We'll see you next Thursday. Bye for now.
Thanks, Moshe.